Okay, well, on Monday, August the 26th of this year, the defendant, Raymond Andrew Walters, 32 years of age, of Dayton, stabbed his 60-year-old father numerous times and then stole his father's pickup truck and fled the area. The defendant drove from Xenia Avenue in Dayton, where this stabbing occurred, to the city of Riverside, where he crashed the pickup truck on Airway Road. The Riverside police responded to assist at what they thought was simply a crash on Airway Road, not knowing, of course, that the defendant had already stabbed his father numerous times. However, when the police arrived and went to check on the damage to the vehicle and anybody that may be inside, the defendant then stole the Riverside police cruiser. He then left the scene at a high rate of speed, and minutes later, the defendant, driving the stolen police cruiser, then ended up crashing into several other cars, including a car at the corner of 3rd Street and Patterson that had 7 children inside the vehicle. The defendant was traveling in speeds in excess of 100 miles an hour before he crashed into the vehicle, killing 2 children, 2 girls, just 6 years of age, in the one vehicle. Today, the Montgomery County Grand Jury has indicted this defendant for 2 counts of murder with the penalty of 15 years to life and 20 additional felonies, including aggravated robbery, including felonious assault, and various other felony offenses. Now, this defendant was already on post-release control at the time that he committed this particular murder, as a result of a robbery conviction back in January of 2017. He had been released from prison just 16 days before he committed this crime. So, as you can see, it's just shocking and tragic what this defendant did that day, and could have all been prevented. Certainly, our heartfelt sympathies go out to the families of those who lost these 2 little girls, as well as the other people who were injured. Any questions?
How many years does he face?
I'm sorry?
How many years potential?
Well, he's got 15 years to life on 2 different counts of murder, which are 2 different counts, so those could run consecutive or one after another, and he's got 20 other felony cases, so we're talking about decades.
Would this become a case where the death penalty is on the table?
It would not.
What brought about the obviously 2 young lives taken here, what brought about the murder charges in this case that suggests a level of intent, or how does that work?
Well, it's under the statute, and Ms. Claypool, I'll have her answer that question for you.
The murder is based upon the proximate result of the defendant committing a robbery when he took the cruiser, the Riverside police cruiser, and after fleeing that theft offense of taking the cruiser, he then caused the death of 2 children. So that's what the murder is based upon.
Can we get your name and your first name and last name?
Erin, E-R-I-N, Claypool, C-L-A-Y-P-O-O-L-E.
Now, you should know that. You guys aren't covering the trials like I used to. You'd see her and Dan, because they're in there all the time.
Was he high or intoxicated during this?
Was he what?
High or intoxicated?
Well, one of the charges, of course, is based on him being under the influence. So I think the evidence will probably show he was under the influence of drugs.
Do we know which ones?
I'm sorry?
Do we know which ones?
I do not at this time. Any other questions?
Have you been in touch with the families of these 2 girls that died?
Have we been in touch?
And any idea their reaction to
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, or as really, I would say, as we really cannot imagine, that losing a 6-year-old daughter is just devastating. It's life-changing. It's just something that they have to live with the rest of their lives. You know, people say you should never have to bury your child, and it's just tragic. So, you know, they were going to the library. These 2 little girls and other children that were in the car were going to the library. And you think that they're there, interested in school, going to the library, and then they end up with a senseless act being murdered.
It sounded like, you know, if you look at the video of the suspect beforehand, he's, you know, saying help me, and, you know, mumbling to himself and just acting very erratically. Is there any indication that he was having like a psychotic break or mental health breakdown?
Well, we have no evidence to show any type of mental incapacity or anything like that. In fact, his prior conviction, there was no allegation that he had any mental deficiency that would cause him to do that, or that would enable him not being responsible for his actions. There was no evidence of that at this time that we've seen.
Mr. Heck, with the understanding that we can't undo what's been done, is there any reason to believe how this individual got out on probation?
On parole. Well, actually, as the evidence will show that he actually served his entire time. So the time that the original sentence that he received for the robbery was actually probation, which some people would find shocking. So he was originally given probation on the original robbery charge. That was a robbery of a gas station. And so he was originally given probation. Then his probation was revoked. He served that particular time and served the time that he was supposed to, so he was out. So in this particular case, from the information that we've garnered so far, it's not like anybody paroled him early. He served his time, but he was on post-release control. And so while he was on post-release control, there was another incident that occurred for which he was then sent back to the penitentiary for a certain number of days. And then when he was released from that post-release control sanction, he was out 16 days when he committed this offense.
Any idea when this trial may take place?
I don't think that, no, we're just starting, he was just indicted today, so I mean, there would be no way of knowing. I mean, hopefully sooner than later.
Do you think he was going to try to deliberately cause a crash going at those speeds, or do you think that's just the consequence of traveling at those speeds, that that's kind of a foregone conclusion? Or do you think he was hoping to create some sort of violent crash?
You know, obviously what he did, he knew he was, the speeds he was traveling and where he was going, especially in a highly populated area and highly trafficked area. I mean, you can expect something's going to happen like that. And going 100 miles per hour, that you know that it's not a good thing that's going to happen. So that's something that he chose to do. It's something that he chose to do when he stabbed his father. It's something he chose to do when he stole the Riverside police cruiser, and then when he went an exorbitant amount of speed trying to just basically get away.
Mr. Heck, are you going to try this case yourself, or are you going to leave this to your individuals standing with you?
You know, if you'd come to more trials, I might have to start trying more of these cases, but no. Mr. Brandt and Ms. Claypool will be trying this case.
Did you ever learn about a motivation for why he stabbed his father?
Why he did what?
Why he stabbed his father to begin with?
That'll may come out in trial, but to look in his mind as to why he did it, we can't tell you today.
Mr. Heck, would you feel comfortable in stating anything of your experience in dealing with these kind of cases to the family, and to acknowledge to them your department's going to do their very best to make sure this never happens with this guy again?
Well, you know, that doesn't need to be said in every case, whether it's a homicide case or no matter what kind of case it is or degree of case. We're going to do our very best to see that justice is given to these victims and the victims' survivors. It's just, words just can't describe, you know, how we feel when we see these kinds of cases. And I know I'm speaking for Ms. Claypool and Mr. Brandt and our victim advocates who have been dealing with the survivors and the families and the other victims in the car that survived, that you just can't even explain how they feel and the heartfelt sorrow that we have for them and their families.